The PlayStation 2 was a prolific console with a massive game catalog. We're talking about over 4,000 games released over the course of the console's life. It seemed every developer wanted to get their games on the PS2. The result was a tremendous number of absolutely fantastic games, and that extended to JRPGs. The PS1 generation was defined by developers experimenting and pushing the limits of what was possible with the genre. With the PS2, they took the lessons learned to craft polished and refined experiences, some of which remain gold standards of JRPGs to this day. There were so many great games on the PS2 that I actually really struggled to narrow down this list. Some of these cuts were truly painful. If your favorite doesn't appear here, let me know how bad I messed up in the comments. Real quick, just wanted to mention that the same rules as the PS1 list apply here. Namely, the list is unordered. This is tough enough to pick 10 games without also trying to rank which belong at the top of the top, and I can only include games I've completed, so games that have been recommended but that I haven't picked up or haven't finished won't appear here. With that out of the way, here are my picks for top 10 PS2 JRPGs. Honorable mentions, the .hack and .hack GU games. I didn't want these to count against my 10 because, well, these are actually 7 games over 2 series. I'm not sure if any individual one of them stands out enough to warrant an inclusion on this list. But as a series, I feel like I'd be doing a disservice to not at least mention them. I used to be super into MMOs, and .hack's representation of MMO culture, all mixed up with typical JRPG shenanigans, seemed to be targeted directly at my interests. Of course, I wasn't the only one. .hack was a phenomenon at its time that spawned multiple anime, novels, and manga. GU Games got a remaster collection for modern consoles, but the original series is unfortunately still stuck on the PS2. Star Ocean to the End of Time. I fully believe Star Ocean to the End of Time is the best game in the franchise. It was also my first Star Ocean game, so there may be just a little bit of bias. From its predecessors, it made the switch from 2D to a 3D battle system, and the process created one of the best feeling takes on the real-time battle system of the generation. The item creation and affection systems return, but each with added layers to them. Who doesn't like filing for patents and collecting profits? The story is complex and wild, using the series' combination of science fiction and fantasy to its fullest potential on Fate's adventure, and with far more of a reaching grasp on the galaxy than elsewhere in the series. It also introduces so much lore it can honestly be hard to keep track of. Fortunately, the game includes a dictionary, which is a feature I always appreciate and which I wish more games even today would do. An HD upscaled version is available for purchase on the PlayStation Store for the PS4. Radiata Stories. At the risk of repeating myself from my PS1 video, I like recruiting lots of unique characters. If you give me a game with a huge cast of recruitable characters, I'm going to have a good time. For me, Radiata Stories was the best of the big party type games for the PS2. And yes, that does mean I'm putting it above the Suikoudens. Nearly every NPC you meet in the game is a recruitable party member, for a whopping total of 176 recruitable characters. There's a branching path in the story where you choose a side in a conflict that will lock you out of the other faction's characters, so you will need to play the game twice in order to recruit everybody. I lost weeks of my life running around, talking to people, and trying to figure out the requirements for adding them to my friends list. Unlike its direct competitors, combat is action-based, with the ability to pause to give tactical orders to your teammates. One of the unique and hilarious mechanics of this game is the ability to start a fight with anybody by kicking them a few times, gaining XP and money when you win. Look at this little psychopath go. Just be careful who you start shit with. Some of these people are in positions of power for a reason. Radiata Stories is currently only available on the PS2, but I hope Tri-A someday remembers this property and brings it to modern systems. Final Fantasy X. There's no way to make a list of best PlayStation 2 JRPGs without including Final Fantasy X, but I'm not sure what I can say that hasn't been said about it a million times, so I'm going to go a little personal instead. Final Fantasy X is one of the few JRPGs I played back before I really considered myself a fan of the genre. I picked it up as a rental from Blockbuster because the cover art looked interesting. It was also one of my first PlayStation games I played overall, so I had been a fiercely loyal Nintendo fanboy for most of my childhood. I was so completely blown away by the graphics, the story, the gameplay, the characters, everything about this game that basically caused me to jump ships from Nintendo to Sony. Over the years, I've replayed Final Fantasy X more times than any other game in the franchise. Each time I feel like it holds up just as well as the first time I played it. It is my opinion that 10 is actually the best game in the entire franchise, though how much of that is nostalgia glasses and how much of that is objective is hard to say. What I will say is if for some reason you haven't played Final Fantasy X yet, and you're a fan of JRPGs, which I assume you are watching this video, you should definitely pick it up. The HD versions for modern consoles and PC have some of the best remastering work we've seen with JRPGs, and they come with 10 too, which is okay. Final Fantasy XII. Alright, it might seem a little hypocritical. After in my PS1 video I picked only one Final Fantasy to keep it from dominating the list. For me to include a second Final Fantasy here but I really can't help it. Picking between them would have been too painful. Final Fantasy X might be my pick for best in the franchise, but Final Fantasy XII is a personal favorite. The Ivalice setting is deep and diverse, and is the perfect backdrop for a story about war, politics, and redemption. Vayne often gets overlooked in discussions about great villains because he doesn't pose a kind of omnipresent, apocalyptic threat of the likes of Sephiroth or Kefka, but I find him so compelling because his goals are grounded and in a way, understandable. And of course, leading man Balthier remains one of the most effortlessly cool characters in gaming. The hybrid battle system is unique, and setting gambits is such a nifty way to control the AI's tactics. Figuring out the right tactics to take on the biggest hunts is both challenging and rewarding. If I had one critique about the game, it would be the original license board system. But in subsequent releases, including the HD remaster for modern consoles, that has been replaced with a fantastic Zodiac job system. If you're one of the people who hasn't played 12 since its original release, I highly recommend you give it another shot. Tolenico, Melody of Elemia. Gust is a developer who has only recently been gaining mainstream recognition in the West thanks to the growing popularity of the Atelier series, but they've been around for a long time. Back in the PS2 era, they gave us Tolenico, a mix of turn-based RPG, dungeon explorer, and visual novel. It's a visually gorgeous game. Even though it eschewed the PS2's 3D capabilities for 2D, it does it with a crisp style that feels like it's a big step up from its predecessors in the last generation. As you might expect from a game with melody in the title, a lot of emphasis was placed on the soundtrack, and it features some really catchy tunes that'll stick with you long after you stop playing. The unique feature of this game is the visual novel segments, called diving, during which you enter one of your teammates' minds to learn more about them and help them resolve their inner doubts, unlocking new powers for them, and new outfits, which is always nice. Some people complain that the game was too easy, but for me, this wasn't an issue. Sometimes it's nice to have a relaxing gameplay experience where you can just sit back, enjoy a good story, and chill to a catchy soundtrack. If you're a fan of Gust's modern games, it's definitely worth taking a look back at this PS2 title. Kingdom Hearts. I don't know who it was that pitched a game that combined Disney properties with Final Fantasy, but I hope they received a massive raise. As a kid, I loved the Disney movies, so the idea of fighting my way through these worlds with JRPG mechanics sold me instantly. And the game did not disappoint. Agrabah, Halloween Town, Atlantica, Neverland, these places set off waves of childhood nostalgia that made me feel like I was a kid experiencing these movies again. And the Final Fantasy characters making an appearance was icing on the cake. Beyond that, it also has a combo-driven action combat system, so quick and so fluid that it made all of its competitors feel like they were a generation behind. When I last replayed Kingdom Hearts after many years away from the series, I was worried it wouldn't hold up to my memories. As I started journeying with Sora, Goofy, and Donald once again, it all came flooding back. This isn't the only game in the franchise on the PS2, but there's something about the game that came before everything started getting really complicated. Something simple and clean. Rogue Galaxy. With Rogue Galaxy, Level 5 tried to create a franchise that would compete with the likes of Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. While they came well short of those expectations, the result was a unique and fun galaxy-spanning adventure. You play as Jaster Rogue, a young man mistaken for the galaxy's most famous bounty hunter and recruited by a crew of space pirates. He is whisked away into a colorful galaxy full of strange creatures and stranger people. Its art style is very cartoony, even for a JRPG, but I think it creates a terrifically bizarre feel. The galaxy is a very weird place, and the art, music, and dialogue all work together to reflect that. It features an action combat system that requires players to pay attention to certain mechanics in order to properly fight enemies, such as jumping on plant monsters' heads to open it and make it vulnerable. For completionists, this game offers a lot, including side quests, weapon synthesis, raising your hunter ranking through finding and killing certain quarries, and a bug battling minigame. It's a shame that Level 5 did not continue with this IP, as I would have loved to return to the strange and rich galaxy. Rogue Galaxy saw an HD upscale port on the PlayStation 4. This one has trophies, so a replay may be in my near future. Persona 3 FES. When I was experiencing a JRPG burnout from one too many plots of farm boy heroes saving their fantasy worlds, it was Persona 3 which revived my love of the genre, as well as started my obsession with Atlus as a developer. It was like a sudden jolt, with its modern-day Japan setting, its dark tones, and its catchy mix of J-pop and hip-hop in its soundtrack. Its social link system, which has you spending time with your companions in order to deepen your bond with them, made me connect with these characters more than in most other games. Though the cast is largely composed of high schoolers, the plot is surprisingly mature and touches on themes of death, suicide, and loneliness. The fact you feel so connected to these characters makes the emotional beats hit so much harder as you watch the characters go through these struggles. There's also an addictive gotta-catch-em-all nature to the personas themselves, which makes for an addictive gameplay loop. The FES version comes with an after-story called The Answer, which ties up some loose ends. There's also a highly regarded PSP port, Persona 3 Portable, which has stripped down some of the features and does not include The Answer, but does come with the option of playing a female protagonist, which changes up the social links. Both versions are very good, and you can't go wrong picking either. Just don't play the Steam port of Portable though, as apparently it has some issues. Shin Megami Tensei Devil Summoner. Besides Persona, Atlus released quite a number of well-regarded Shin Megami Tensei titles for the PS2. The mainline series title, Shin Megami Tensei 3 Nocturne, is considered by many to be the best of the title series, although for me, its difficulty kept me from fully enjoying it. My personal favorite of the lot is Devil Summoner Raidou Kuzunoha vs. the Soulless Army. What a mouthful. The third game in the Devil Summoner spin-off of Megaton, and the first to come to the US, puts you in the control of the title character, a high school-age detective who also happens to be a devil summoner in an alternate history version of the 1930s. Alternate history fiction has always been pretty interesting to me, and this setting's use of real historical figures and locations really scratches that itch. What really makes this game, and its sequel, stand out among the Megaton titles is their use of an action battle system, which they managed to blend with the series' traditional demon summoning. It's got a great story, an interesting mystery, and a good variety of demons to recruit. Everything you could want from a Megaton game. Unfortunately, neither it nor its sequel have yet been made available on modern consoles. Tales of the Abyss. If you get a bunch of Tales fans in a room and ask them what game is the best in the franchise, there will be quite a bit of debate, but the one game that would likely rise to the top of most of their lists is Tales of the Abyss. Abyss is a masterclass in taking traditional JRPG elements and doing them so well it becomes something greater. All of the expected tropes are there: amnesia, an over-the-top villain organization, chosen one powers, and big plot twists that reveal that everything is not as it seems. But the storytelling is so good, you don't even realize that's what they're doing. Heck, the character development itself is so excellent that the spoiled, rich aristocrat protagonist, Luke, who you spend the first part of the game wanting to smack in the face, becomes sympathetic and likable by the end. The combat system is an iteration of the Tales action battle system, this being the first one to allow characters to free run in 3 dimensions, adding an extra layer. Abyss got a port to the 3DS which was surprisingly well done, though with the eShop closing, I'm not sure if that one is easier to obtain than the original. If you're new to the Tales series and only going to play one title, I couldn't recommend Tales of the Abyss enough. That's my top 10. I hope you enjoyed it, maybe been inspired to pick up a game or two. I also hope your anger at me for not including your favorite isn't too intense. But let me know in the comments what you think I missed. I feel I owe a particular apology to all Dragon Quest VIII fans. It's a great game, but it's also very, very long, and I've never managed to get fully through it, so it didn't qualify for this list. Thank you Maki Diaz for suggesting I follow up my PS1 list with this one, and everyone else who really helped load that video up. Seriously, for a tiny channel like mine, the amount of feedback I got was super exciting. As usual, let me know if you have any game suggestions for me to add to my infinite backlog, and if you want to see more of this kind of content. We've got some new skits coming real soon. Till then, later, and thanks for watching.